Good day. It's Tuesday, May the 4th. I'm Martin Gagel with Radius Research. Today we are joined by Giasson, CEO of Mustgrow, and Colin, Bletsky, COO. Mustgrow is a biotech company focused on providing natural, science-based biological solutions for the agricultural industry. Corey and Colin, thanks for the presentation, and let's move on to the Q&A. There are several questions. I think the biggest thing on everyone's mind is the whole EPA process and pathway to that, and then ultimately commercialization and revenues. You say that you've got your 3.6 million that should get you to registration. What's the timeline involved with that? And there's some path. There's some. If things are very good looking, you may get fast track. Could you talk about what sort of options or paths that may happen on your pathway to EPA registration, and about sort of the time frame it could, on a fast scale or on a longer term, what time range could this take?
Well, we've been working through the EPA registration here for our Terra MG for use in the U.S. For fruit and veggies, the plastic crops. The fumigation crops for the high value crops is what we like to call them. That registration has been delayed. With COVID-19, government agencies around the world have slowed down quite a bit. We're currently still working with the EPA through that. It's hard to say to get an estimate for approval, given that we're working with government agencies and it's really out of our control. But what I will say is that what they're looking for, though, for natural products, and that we check all the boxes. It's natural, it's organic, it's got a short half-life. It's it's safe, non-hazardous use. It's benign in storage and transportation. The active ingredient is released in the ground. So we're quite excited about that aspect, and the fact that that's typically what the EPA would be looking for new products coming to the market. And Colin, maybe you want to touch on any of that.
Yeah, no. So I think there was two parts to your question, Martin, on looking at fast tracking, and I think we are progressing through the EPA, and now it's in the process of waiting, and we have that data, and I think we have the great product and the ability to show the benefits around it. And one thing Corey didn't mention was also the soil health in those areas. When we look at fast tracking, it's not just about the EPA. We're hopeful that working through with Nexus and really generating good field data, that we can work through and work with the producer groups, grower groups such as the Canola Growers Association, the Pulse Growers Association, and if we can show some good value and control in the fields, start applying and looking at trying to get an emergency use in Canada. There are no, and that's one thing I didn't mention for new listeners, is there are no chemical controls right now for clubroot, for Phenamyces, or for Fusarium wilt TR4. So being able to control that, or even have some level of preventative measures, is a very important feat. So we will be looking at how we can work through that in a fast track way. And it's kind of very similar to what we're trying to do in Colombia, based on field data reports and understanding there, is start working through the government process to see how can we essentially fast track a natural based product to help go in and provide a potential solution for some of these producers. So it's now just a matter of, we just have to work through the process and continue to do what we've been doing.
And this process, and I know it's out of your hands and you can't get too specific, but is this something that could or should likely happen in 2021, or it could fall into 2022, or just some kind of, we're not going to hold you to it, but just sort of some guesstimates as what kind of range it could be?
Yeah, and you know what, to be honest, we can't even speculate what that range may be. This isn't government. We've applied the information, and now it's just a matter, we have to work through that process. And I maybe, to give it in context, a typical registration with the EPA will take anywhere from a 3 to 5 year period. In South America, in a country like Brazil, working through Embrapa, you're looking anywhere from a 5 to 7 period. And even into Europe, you're looking at 5 to 8 years. So it all depends country by country, the type of product you have, the markets you're doing, and the need that you have to fulfill. And I think that's the area that we are filling a need that others are not. And that's an area we still need to continue to work through and continue to educate the EPA. And essentially, we're on their timeline now, Martin, and it's a matter that it's hard to speculate because you never know.
Fair enough. You say like typically EPA is 3 to 5 years. When did your clock start ticking on that sort of theoretical 3 to 5 year range?
And that's just so I clarify, that's for a new active ingredient. So we had our existing registration, which had a great data package around it. We had a granule product. So we're just in the process of looking at this new formulation. So it's a different time frame. I was just commenting on the total amount of time it takes for a new active or product to get in.
All right. Okay. And let's say when you guys get your EPA registration, you're looking at toll manufacturers right now to produce it. Is the let's say once the registration happens, what is the path after that? You line up your distribution. You already have a relationship with Nexus. How does post EPA the rollout, the actual commercial rollout, occur with production and distribution partners?
Well, we initially, I mean, with our original granular product, we had $700,000 of sales already into the U.S. market. So there's existing customers that the old granular product had, and yeah, we continue to get calls for that product. But that being said, we're identifying the pathway for that commercialization. Once we do have the registration, we've identified how we're going to produce it initially, and our goal is to get as much market penetration as quickly as possible, if that be through a distribution type agreement, similar to what we had with the old granular product, or with a partnership type of arrangement with a group that's already in this market. And so.
All right. On with the toll manufacturing, is there any risk to how that gets manufactured, or is it the whole production process pretty straightforward? And it's just a matter of sort of managing the costs associated with it, or is there much opportunity that you think you can improve the production process to reduce your costs?
Yeah, well, we've produced product here already. We continue to produce product. The groups that we're dealing with on the toll manufacturing side, they are experts in that area. That's their business, is toll manufacturing. And that, so there shouldn't be any risk in that aspect of it. We're formulating about 2 million liters of product here, or sorry, not 2 million, 2,000 liters of product right now for field trials coming up. And in terms of enhancement of the formulation, we've got experts on our team. Dr. Dave Maines he's probably the foremost expert on extraction of product from oil seeds in the world, and that. So we're looking forward to working with him and continuing to enhance an already excellent product.
All right. And then can you talk about in South America with the banana? So I don't know, I'm not a farming guy, but I know the seasons here in North America when the growing is. How does the banana seasons work along the equator? And do you have to wait for certain times of the year when the crops come in and timing the application of your formulation? Because you can't, they're banana trees, you can't, I presume you're not spreading it on the ground before the bananas get planted. You're doing it post plant, or how does those trials work?
And this is where there's a number of questions on the Q&A, but I'll address a lot of these as I can. So there's two folds that we're testing and looking at in bananas. Number one is the areas where the plantations had to be removed and eradicated. And essentially, if they get infected with Fusarium wilt TR4, the banana plantation is cut down. It has to be bagged, removed from site, and then incinerated. Then the soil is no longer be able to be used for anything. It's under quarantine. So we're targeting twofold. We're targeting, number one, to look at how can we help remediate or reclaim that soil that's already been quarantined, and give those growers the ability to use that soil again for bananas or for some other type of production. And that disease is transmitted through soil and trash. So we have to be very careful, and we're looking around that. The other part of the testing, which is going to take longer, and that testing we hope will be a 2 to 3 month process to really understand it and go through the very titration and really look at how we can eradicate that disease and at what rate levels. The other area is actually looking in the actual physical plantations as a preventative or a complementary type of method. And one of the questions in the chat was around the research around CRISPR and gene technology through the University of Queensland. To me, that's great. It's a great opportunity. These are types of diseases, as in canola, as in pulse crops, as in any crop around the world. You cannot have one silver bullet. Genetics isn't going to be enough to control a disease long term. A product like ours isn't going to be enough to control a disease long term. You need to have a full package. So having other products that are now being developed for these markets to really help the banana industry is extremely important. And we're really excited to look at how we can put our product into the entire portfolio of products, whether that be other biologicals that have some effect, mycorrhizae, genetics, new monocots, new different varieties is important. And it's important because the banana industry feeds so many people around the world. It employs over 2 million people around the world. It's a $25 billion industry, and this disease has already caused over $18 billion of damage. So we have to look at it in that mindset. So when we go back to the trials, we're looking at the soil, and we're also looking at the actual plantations and how do we work in context in combination with these other areas. And that's how we're looking at it. And that is going to take longer. To really understand the full effect of our technology in that marketplace will take a bit more time.
All right. There is a question here. Do you plan to sell your products in Europe? Could you talk about your what are your priorities for targeting the European market, either which product or which crops you're looking at targeting there?
Yeah, and on that, there's tremendous opportunity in Europe looking at the soil pre-plant application market. If you look at the deregulation or deregistration of some of the key chemical technologies, like essentially looking at soil-borne pest and disease. There's also the deregulation of the post-harvest side. So there's a tremendous amount of opportunity in Europe. The European Union, though, we will have to work through the whole regulatory system and truly understand that and deliver the data. So for right now, we are focused on the Americas with the money we have and the ability and the focus we need to really accelerate the opportunity we have in North America on the pre-plant as well as post, as well as in South America on the not only bananas, but other crops we're looking at. We are focusing first and foremost in the Americas, but will eventually and look for partners and the right way to get into the European as well as the Asian marketplace.
When you get, let's say, registration in one country, let's say in the EPA in the States, does that hold any sway in other markets that you try to enter? They take that data and say, well, if it's good enough for the EPA, we'll look at it, but maybe fast track it, given that this has some significant importance to their economies and crops?
Yeah, you know what? I wish it was that way, Martin, but for the most part, it's not. It's very similar to the vaccines we see today. Some countries are approving some other ones aren't. The agricultural world is heavily regulated, which is actually, maybe a bad thing in one way because it takes a bit more time to get to market, but it's also a very good thing because it helps, not only it adds to essentially our patent portfolio and our protection. So the EPA, if we do have data and once we get registration in the EPA, it will help bringing product into other parts of the world for testing, but it doesn't really help on the regulatory side. We still have to go through the country level processes and areas there that we have to go through.
Do the regulatory bodies like in Central and South America with the banana crops, it's such an important crop, I presume they weighed it and say, oh crap, we've got a legitimate solution for the banana. I would think they would sort of fast track that for their own benefit because that's what their whole process is there. Or how do they weigh those? Or can you comment on anything on how they weigh the risks versus the potential benefits?
You know, I can't comment exactly how they do that, but what we're doing to try and mitigate any of that process is the laboratory trials we've done we're utilizing the EPA. So EPA is the Colombian government's regulatory bodies protocols. We use their protocols. The field trials going in are using the Colombian government protocols. So what we're doing is utilizing their protocols, ways of working with things, and just incorporating our product to try and mitigate some of that back and flow. But to say, my hope, my hope, I'm an optimistic guy, is that if we are able to show success in the field as we have in the lab, that we would have some form of potential fast track because of the way our product is, because of the safety aspects, because everything around it. But I can't comment on how that government's going to react, or any government's going to react to what we have until they actually do so.
Does it help at all if you have, let's say, a local partner or working, and you obviously are working with some local partners there, but any kind of partnerships that can help sort of provide that legitimacy or help you work through the bureaucratic process?
Yeah, potentially, but we are, as you mentioned, we are also working right now with local partners, with people who are key and involved and have those connections in government. So, you know, I think it's very similar to what we're doing in Canada, trying to work through Nexus and potentially with the pulse growers and canola growers. You show value, you show the benefit, and then you start working through the process. And we just have to follow that process, and we can't go around it. It's too big of a market. If you think of the global ag market and crops, and the value of these markets, it's massive. So to do it, we have to do it the right way to make sure that we don't disrupt that long-term value.
There's a question in here on the potential pricing, the value you could sell your product here. Is there any comments you can make on that? And I presume you, and maybe if you could discuss the pricing process where it's not just, oh, we're a retail store and we put a 20% margin on stuff. You look at the value, what competitive products are, what they kind of sell at, and the relative efficacies. Could you sort of flesh that out a bit?
Yeah, sure.
So maybe go ahead, Corey.
Oh, well, yeah. So our modeling is based on existing competitive pricing and that of synthetic chemicals and that. So we're looking to price our products to be competitive for those synthetic chemicals. Which would bodes very well for us at existing application rates to be very competitive to help replace the ones that have been banned and not be too costly to producers.
Is there any kind of a number you could throw out there or is it too early for like this kind of price per liter or anything like that? Or is that just too early at this point?
Too early at this
until
point.
we get, until there's actual registration, it's too early. But as Corey mentioned, when we look at the marketplace, and if you look at the US specifically, we do have hard data showing what competitive molecules and synthetic products are being sold for. So mimicking those and coming in the same price point. And that's where our technology takes away a lot of the barriers that growers have had in the past. It takes away the ease of use. Our product's easy to use. Our product is safe. Shelf life is long. Efficacy is there. And we're planning on keeping the price point in the same mindset of synthetic chemicals to try and penetrate that market as fast as we can.
And as well, it's not just what's your price per liter, it's the application rate and maybe how many times you have to apply it and how long it's effective for. Am I right on that point?
Correct.
All right. All right. Could we go, I find the the work that you're doing with food preservation with the potatoes and so forth, it'd be fascinating. Could you, you've got some interesting data at this point. Could you talk about the pathway and the timeline and the milestones involved with those products in that market?
Go ahead, Colin.
Yeah, so on that one, we are continuing to do work. AITC is known and has done, and that's why we did sign the partnership and working with Dr. Matthew Mora, who is one of our advisors who understands and has spent almost 4 decades looking at this molecule. AITC is known, and they have a lot of data from the University of Idaho showing its benefits on a sprout control area. What we are doing is looking at our technology and working with them, and we'll continue to do research to, number one, validate what we have to be able to make sure that we are showing the same level of efficacy. But number two, be able to patent and work through a lot of the different areas that we're looking at and in that marketplace. So initially, you won't see this. It's not going to be a fast track to market. It's more around validating and patenting and securing our technology even further, and then accelerating into these marketplaces. And if you look at it, with the removal of CICP in the European Union, it causes a significant issue because it's a heavy capital investment for refrigeration, which from what we understand is not truly working right now. There are no other products on the marketplace. And if you look at the European Union, typically what happens there comes to the US and other marketplaces. And harvesting potatoes or other root and tuber veggies late in fall and having them to be available for store and consumers right through until spring and early summer, you need a long-term storage. So we are working through that, and it's the time frame right now. It's more important that we do the work and put the patents and everything behind it than it is about really trying to accelerate into the marketplaces.
So the registration process for that hasn't started yet. You're still doing the core science and making sure your portfolios and all your data sets are solid before pushing further down that.
That is correct, yes.
And that would be any kind of root vegetables, or could it be applied to shipping and storage of, I don't know, oranges, apples, or other things as well, potentially?
Yeah, we are looking at multiple different areas. The first area is looking at more so the sprout control, so inhibiting sprouting. We're also looking at disease and other types of controls, looking at not only root and tuber, so potatoes, you think of onions, garlic, carrots, but also down into fresh produce as well.
All right. I don't know much about this, but someone has asked a question. Have you established any R&D partnerships, North American turf grass or forage markets?
And currently,
no, we haven't established any of that yet, but I will say that the initial granular product did have sales into the turf market. It had significant sales into that market. So that's an area that we haven't been focused on yet, but we look forward to testing it in there down the road.
All right. And it's not as topical or as such a hot topic anymore, but you've had some news in the past about the cannabis market and looking at some of the pest control and so forth in that market. Could you discuss where are you and how focused are you on those markets right now?
Yeah, so sorry, on that one, we did receive registration and approval for CannaPM, which is the molecule that's used for preventative on powdery mildew. And if you think of powdery mildew, it does impact cannabis as well as hemp quite readily. So we are now in process of working through the distribution chain and finding the right partners and moving that product forward to commercialization. So it's essentially just working through all those different aspects right now and moving it forward. And we will be finding the right partners to help us drive that into the marketplace so that we maintain our focus in the big food markets, fruit and vegetables, as well as the bananas and pulse crops as well.
So you've got registration in that area, but that doesn't, there are competitive type products in there. So you still have to then do some commercial trials, make sure people are happy with it. They understand the economics of applying it, how much it improves yield or diminishes the potential of pests. Is that sort of how it goes?
That's fair, but actually with this product, it's quite unique. This product was on the marketplace in the past and was used by multiple different cannabis growers, medicinal cannabis growers in the past. And it was removed back a number of years ago, not because of safety or efficacy, it was just removed because of corporate reasons. Early in the stage of Mustgrow, we went and were able to bring that product back and license it back. And we now have final full approval to sell. And we're just working through the right models and the right opportunities and moving that forward. So getting in with these growers, there's a lot of understanding and knowledge around it. And it is a very, quite a unique product based on it is preventative to powdery mildew. And that's one thing that when you look at the challenges the market has had, and some of the growers we talked to essentially said until when this product was around, they never had powdery mildew. And that's one of the areas that we're now trying to bring that product back and really accelerate its potential.
All right. On a very more sort of mechanical basis here, there's a question. Are you thinking of moving to the TSX Venture? Are you happy on the CSC, and any thoughts on some US exchanges?
Yeah, so first of all, we are happy with the CSC. It's been a great exchange for us to go public in. We're always assessing the opportunity to move to a bigger board, both in Canada and the US, but we don't have any plans as of yet.
All right. Is there, on a more sort of generic, sort of broader topic, in terms of deal making, is there any opportunity, or do you contemplate at all any M&A, or you have done some sort of in-licensing of some technologies? Could you, or do you just have your plates full enough because you got a lot going on and a lot of big opportunities? Or are you kind of happy with what you have now and just maybe add in some things that facilitate or help out your current markets, or do you have your eyes on potentially some new products or markets?
Well, on the I guess initially on the M&A side, you know, we're always assessing everything at all times, and that so whatever is going to create value for our shareholders. In terms of, you know, we do have a vast product pipeline that's at different stages, and that but we're only talking about two different technologies. One both being extracts from the mustard seed, and we do have a lot. We're a small team, but we do have a lot of external advisors and consultants that are helping us along the way, doing different things in that. So it's not just Colin and I doing the work. We do have a big team behind us of advisors and scientists helping us move these technologies along. Colin, is there anything you want to add to?
No, we continually look, Martin. I would say there's a lot of different opportunities, and we assess them as they come in. It is a very large market. If you look at it, the crop protection market on itself is a $65 billion, excluding the post-harvest. It's a very large market with a very drastic need for change, and that's what we're hoping to provide. So we need to focus on our technology first, but if there's something that comes that has a very good complementary or essentially some type of synergy value, we'll look at it, but we look at all different things and we'll assess them.
All right. I'm going to circle back to the registration process, just because I find that kind of interesting. Could you just generically kind of talk about what kind of, in your prior work and what you start off in a lab basis, just sort of see in a lab how it affects things. It moves to a greenhouse, then you go to crop trials. And then you've also talked about sort of the soil health with the microbiome. So I guess your Terra MG, it doesn't just sort of kill everything in the soil. It keeps some of the good stuff. I'm all over the place with this question, but I guess what are they looking for? They're looking for, does it get rid of the bad stuff, but not kill too much of the good stuff? And then it doesn't drain into the water. It's a super broad question. I apologize for that, but I think it's good for me and kind of everyone else to understand what sorts of things are looked at.
Colin, you've got more experience on this than I do, so you go.
Yeah. So I would say I'm going to target the last one first because I think it's the most important one. Right. When you look at soil health, as a farmer, and I still have a farm with my family, we're in the current process of planting 8,000 acres in Western Canada here. Our soil is our biggest asset, and it's the most critical thing that we need to protect. If you look at everything around sustainability, you look at climate change, CO2, you look at a crop and feeding the world. So it starts with the soil. And if I look at this, why is India having so many issues? They're very saline. They put a lot of excess amount of fertilizers and chemistries to their soil, and their soil is not as healthy as it could be. Same thing in Asia, same thing in other parts of the world. Protecting our soil is critical. And that's one thing with our product. Because of its attributes, we do see we're moving the target, which is the target disease or pest that we're trying to attack, and nematode. But we also see a positive impact on the beneficial fungi and bacteria that are in the soil. And this is proven through data. We have this through external data, third party. It is peer reviewed. So that means when it's peer reviewed, it's reviewed by smarter people than me and Corey. And they approve that this data is reputable. It can be replicated, and it is true. So that's one thing with our technology that is very different than the chemistries we're trying to replace, is we have that positive benefit. And that's one area where we do see around the world. I think you're going to see a very big focus on soil health, the soil microbiome. You do see it already with Soil Health Day, World Soil Day, all the different things around the environment. So that's number one. On regulatory, I think, it comes down to, we have what we need. We've put things forward. We have a very good, robust product that works, but it also has a very good profile when it comes down to it. We're using food grade mustard seed. And it's essentially a lot of things. Mustard's been used for centuries. It's been used as a cover crop. People know it, and there's a lot of data behind it. So we're in a very good position on that side. We just have to be patient and work through the systems. And we can't control government. I wish I could control government, but we can't. Being a Western Canadian farm boy, I wish I could control government more than I probably should. But we have to be patient and work through those processes. And I think that's something that we just have to recognize, that we have a great product that works. It's natural, it's organic, and it has a great, tremendous amount of attributes. And we just have to work through those processes. And it's just going to take some time.
Are you guys, like, there are some synthetic chemicals that you're competing against. Some of them are horribly toxic. But I don't think you're also, like, the banana market is sort of wide open. They're just trying to look for any sort of a solution on there. Are you fighting against any incumbents from some of the giant sort of ag pharma companies out there where they're going to, let's call it, they're going to try to throw shade on you guys and say, oh, that stuff doesn't work? Or it sounds like you actually kind of have wide open markets where you're not going to have people trying to trash talk you, so to speak, and in your products. Could you talk about that kind of competitive environment a bit?
Yeah, and I think, Martin, it goes the other way. They're not trying to trash talk. I think there's a lot of skepticism, right? We have a lot of data in hand, but there's skepticism because most of the big organizations have a invented here mentality. So they believe anything they invent is superior. But with that said, they see the writing on the wall. And if you look at over the past year, BASF, Syngenta, Bayer, they've all committed over $10 billion into this sustainable agriculture marketplace. You look at PepsiCo, Del Monte, you look at a lot of the big food companies now putting a lot into this marketplace because people know you need sustainable products that are going to replace chemistry. So when we look at it, it's I guess the benefit of our expertise in these markets, our connections globally with a lot of these organizations and working with them. There are a number of organizations utilizing our product in field and seeing the benefits, and that's where we're working through. So I would say there's not as a pushback. I would say it's more of a, how do we work with these folks? And my mindset, if I'm on one of the sides where we know we're going to cannibalize some of their synthetic technology, I want to be on the other side saying, how do I get access to that product so I can not minimize my cannibalization and minimize my product loss sales? So I think there's a lot of opportunity for us working with those organizations.
I asked about M&A previously with you guys doing that. The ag tech market, Colin, it's a pretty dynamic market. And I guess I'll give you guys maybe a chance to paint some big blue sky here. There's a lot of like the big ag techs are like other big companies. They wait for technologies to be developed, kind of proven, and then they've got the distribution to really push it throughout the world. Could you talk about what does that M&A world look like happening in general? Like, are the Syngentas, the BASFs and so forth, are they active in sort of picking up new assets and new technologies in the market?
And the answer is yes. If you look at the space that we're in specifically, it's been very exciting over the past year and 18 months, and we believe it's going to continue to grow. I've actually almost lost count. I think the number I remember seeing was roughly, I think it's above 10 companies have already been consolidated or bought out, not only by the big players, but also by funds. If you look at somebody like A&E Partners, they bought out Verdesian Life Sciences, who now, they bought that company, and Verdesian now just bought another company. They're expanding. If you look at the Mars family with buying and accelerating Helia, their organization, if you look at the fertilizer companies buying, there's a lot of activity in this industry and a lot of excitement. And I think it stems to the fact that it's a $65 billion marketplace that's getting a lot of pressure on synthetic chemicals. There needs to be change, and people are looking for how to get access to technology. And that's the most important thing. It's a lot of excitement, and it's not going away in my mind. Our population is growing, chemicals are getting deregulated, and we need to produce more food. And how do you do that? You need to change, and we need to do things differently. And that's where we see it. So if you look at it, I think, if you're connected with me on LinkedIn, I posted a thing on there. It was a report from E&Y, and it did map out a whole bunch of the activity already in the ag space in this marketplace. And there's been stuff since that time as well.
Are there any, this has been very in-depth. We're coming up to an hour here. Are there any other areas that we should hit upon as we wrap this up, or have we any things you want to highlight here?
I think there's one question that maybe we want to address. It was about the size of the biopesticide and biologics markets to date and the growth rate that we're seeing. So I'll just address that right now. From what I've seen, it was roughly if I remember, roughly about $3.8 billion was that marketplace. Biostimulant products, which are ones that help plant health, they don't control a pest, was the bulk of that marketplace. The growth rate I last seen was close to double digits. But I would say this, that market has been around for a long time and it hasn't grown to the extent that it could have. And the reason is technologies on a biocontrol side, so looking to control disease, pests, or insects, have not been as effective. If you look at living microorganisms, Bacillus, Trichoderma, Streptomyces, they haven't been as effective in controlling and actually being as usable as synthetic chemicals. And that's one thing that's unique with our technology. We're able to show that we can be easy to use, have a long shelf life, be used in multiple markets. We're showing similar efficacies to chemistries at similar price points. And that's where I see a tremendous amount of opportunity to grow. But that marketplace is big, it's growing, and it will continue to grow over the next number of years.
Addressed my question book here. I'd like to thank you guys for taking the time to talk to the investors. So any final question or any final comments from you guys? Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Martin. And if anybody has any further questions, just reach out to us at info@mustgrow.ca. We'll be happy to answer them.
Corey and Colin, thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us. Cheers.
Thanks, Martin.
Thanks, Martin.